God, how many times have we heard this line before experiencing some of the most thrilling sword fights, at least while watching Tom and Jerry? Well, there are epic moments on the big screen too, and the TV region is going to give you a taste with the top 25 best sword fight scenes in the movies. Call it recency bias or whatever, but I think Austin Butler may have found his niche. He just has to be a crazy dude who dies at the end of the movie for it to be a success. It happened with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it happens in Dune Part 2 as well. Although he does impress us all in the arena fight just before that. Now, Fade Rauthar doesn't exactly have long swords, and neither do his opponents, but they're a lot bigger than knives, so I'll consider them miniature swords for now. As far as the fight's concerned, it was nothing short of brutal, and it showed us all what to expect from Fade as an individual. This dude clearly loves to kill just for the thrill of it, and that crazed look on his face is hard to erase from your memory. He takes down multiple opponents, but I must highlight that all of them but one were drugged. Here's some trivia now. The slave who wasn't drugged was actually the fight choreographer for both Dune 1 and Dune 2. Now, we've got Lucius and Acacius having a go at each other. I honestly don't understand why Gladiator 2 is even a thing, because the first movie perfectly gave us the story that needed to be told. Plus, Acacius was said to have served under Maximus, and he apparently would give his life for him, but yet he wasn't even mentioned once in the OG flick.
And your father, Maximus, I would have died for him.
I don't know, maybe they just wanted to squeeze Pedro Pascal into the movie somehow, and I'm not going to complain because the dude gave us a phenomenal fight scene against Lucius. They do use swords for a considerable amount of time, but eventually, it's the drama that takes over. Lucius refuses to take Acacius' life after hearing the truth, but unfortunately, the rest of the audience wanted to be done with it, so Pedro Pascal had to die in yet another battlefield. I think you'd still prefer this to what happened in Game of Thrones, because that was messed up on a whole other level. At number 23, we're mixing swords and aliens by including a badass sword fight between Hanzo and the Falconer Predator. Yes, the blade on its arm is pretty much like a sword without a handle, so it counts. The best part about this battle was the amount of respect both fighters had for each other. Even the Predator played by the rules and didn't make use of any unfair openings. Man, these aliens may have more honor than most of the humans that we know, you know. Plus, I'm sure the Falconer Predator was like, finally, a worthy opponent.
What is that?
Anyway, the staging of the battle was well done, with equal turns deciding the eventual outcome. The dark setting may not have made it very conspicuous, but the encounter was a delight to watch. Yeah, you know, I think a draw was the fairest outcome for both of them, even though Hanzo did stand his ground just a tad bit longer than his opponent. Kudos to him though, bro's officially on the Arnold Schwarzenegger level of Giga Chads. We had Predators in the previous entry, but now we're mixing swords in the middle of vengeance. Ridley Scott deserves an award for still making movies at his age, although they're nowhere near the quality of a Blade Runner, Alien, or a Gladiator. Anyway, The Last Duel is a very intense movie, as the duel in question is over Jacques apparently having his way with Jean's wife Marguerite. I won't get into how the truth is obscured and uncertain because that would need a whole analysis video, but I'll get into how epic the duel is. What I love in this scene is that the armor is actually effective. In every other period movie, the armor is as solid as paper, with every main character wielding something that could have just as well have been a lightsaber. But here, it's different, and both fighters are literally giving it their all because honor and survival are both at stake. It's a really brutal end for Jacques, but if what he did was actually true, which it heavily hints to be, then he totally deserved it.
In the name of God, and on the peril of damnation of my soul, I am innocent of the crime!
Okay, so this is more of a Riz fight than a sword fight, but it's highly entertaining and there are actual sword skills involved, so it's well within the qualification criteria. I loved the Mask of Zorro while growing up as a kid, and I must say a lot of us were impressed by the way Zorro, aka Alejandro, not only won his battle against Elena, but managed to, for lack of a better word, woo her in his own strange little way. Look, I'll admit the bro was being a menace, but Elena does marry him later, so I guess it all worked out in the end. However, just make sure you don't try this method in real life, otherwise you're gonna be the next Diddy. Back to the fight, I think Elena would have actually done a much better job if she didn't let Zorro get inside her head. I mean, she had years and years of training, so her loss definitely wasn't for a lack of skill. Just like how we heard the iconic line in Troy, here's the king who fights his own battles. Well, Hal is technically still a prince here, but he does win the duel and eventually becomes king once his dad dies, so it's poetic enough. His duel against Hotspur is probably one of the most realistic fights you'll ever see on the screen. Both men are sloppy, desperate, losing their swords, out of breath, falling down, and by no means graceful. But then again, this is exactly how fights used to be back in the day, unless you're an S-rank samurai. The armor does its job too, and the ending was very much acceptable judging how the encounter went. It's an enjoyable sequence, and I actually like Timothée Chalamet's performance in this movie, even though I still feel he's mostly made to be a charmer of women in whatever role he plays. Well, I suppose that makes June an exception as well. At number 19, Keanu Reeves shows us that he doesn't always need guns to be a badass. He may have won all of our hearts as John Wick, but in 47 Ronin, he is just Kai who's fighting in disguise. There are some strict rules when it comes to dueling this way, and unfortunately for Kai, even though his intentions were good, he wasn't a samurai, so he couldn't fill in for Yasuno. Also, that golem was an absolute unit, so the fact that he even put up such a good fight was praiseworthy. However, not only does he lose the duel, he also gets exposed and is punished for his behavior. But you know what? The fight would have only lasted like 10 seconds if Keanu got a pencil instead of a sword, and I'm not favouring the golem here. The first John Wick movie came out a year after this one, so who knows? Maybe Keanu had some added motivation to become the ultimate assassin.
You are not a samurai. Kill it.
No! No!
Okay, so this one's got a whole bunch of fancy moves that enhance the fight by adding some entertainment to it. Connor's supposed to be caught off guard, but we all know that's not how the main character operates, so we get an insane sword fight instead. I'll say this once again, the fight is good, but all that extra stuff they were doing was totally unnecessary. Even so, it was really fun to watch, and that's kind of why I've placed it above all the other entries so far. For instance, I love how Fassel starts showing off his Olympic gold medal gymnastics mid-fight for no reason. Like, seriously, bro had no reason to do that, but I guess he wanted to make the most out of the screen time that was given to him. I hope he enjoyed that, because I'm sure he wouldn't have felt the same about his decapitation. Here's another fun fact for you. The dude who played Fassel was Peter Diamond, who also coordinated the stunts in the movie. have so many young people ganging up against you, you gotta go hard because you can't go home. It's just Hirayama and Ogura against all of Naritsugu's guards here, but numbers don't matter to our man, as he slashes them all down with just a little assistance from Ogura, who takes down the ones who managed to go past his master. They do need to retreat once reinforcements arrive, but my focus was only on the first wave. Anyway, this movie's got one of the longest final battles I've ever seen in my life. If you're one who doubts the realism, the reason they go in 2 at a time or a max of 3 in sword fights is because of the sweep radius required for the sword. The enemy would slice their own people in half if they went in a bunch, or they may not be able to create any force behind a sword sweep. Given that the samurai katana is around 30 to 40 inches, you do need some space. It's always better to win a duel in front of a live audience. And before we go on, please forgive me if I don't pronounce these names correctly, okay? The battle between Michich and Colonel Wolodyowski was a brilliant display of swordsmanship that impressed me in particular because it didn't use any flashy editing. I showed this scene to someone who trained in fencing, and he said that it was the best depiction it's seen in any film. The way that the Colonel was toying a bold rookie in Michich was quite typical of how a pro would mess around with a rookie. I also love how the final blow isn't something ridiculous or flamboyant, but rather a simple, precise strike, which is how it's meant to be. Luckily for Michich, he was spared by his opponent, which just adds more aura points to the Colonel.
Handfast. Still Austin.
When dealing with Orenishi, it's all about the timing, and the bride makes sure to follow her opponent's statement, only not in the way she would have expected. The fight lasts just under 5 minutes due to that, and it's all we need to know that it's a classic. I feel that Oren was the only fighter Beatrix was genuinely scared of. They both knew each other's strengths, and despite the tone of their conversations, I also believe that they had a level of respect for each other. But at the end of the day, it's always the main character who comes out on top, isn't it? Man.
Silly Caucasian girl likes to play with samurai swords. You may not be able to fight like a samurai, but you can at least die like a samurai.
They should make like a spin-off series or something on Oren, because I think she would have had a really interesting backstory to show the audience, you know? Tarantino's magic never fails to amaze us, although he always makes sure to include feet as the focus of the shot one way or another. Being Russell Crowe in The Gladiator is badass enough, but when you find yourself fighting with freaking tigers around you, you're on a whole other level. This battle had Maximus on his toes, as Tigris of Gore didn't just have fancy armor on him, he had a whole bunch of tigers assisting him throughout the fight. Even so, our man Maxius wins the duel thanks to his pristine skills and quick thinking. The real flex comes when he spares his opponent's life, although I do feel bad for the tiger that had to get slain. See, this is what I'm talking about. The sequel's best scene is nowhere close to this, and it ain't even the best moment from the movie. Ridley Scott really should have taken the W and just stopped at this film. It shouldn't be too shocking to learn that a character named Blade is good with, blades. After the immense success of the first film, it was only natural to have a sequel in place, and Wesley Snipes came back with even more sass than he had in the first film. The intro to Blade 2 had our boy taking on some vampire ninjas, and he owned them with relative ease. The editor of the scene really must have had their work cut out for them, because there are some really rapid shots here. I guess that's what makes it so enjoyable in the first place, right? You wanna know what's really gangster though? Bro fought for a majority of this encounter with his sword sheathed. Yeah, there's a reason he's such an icon, and also why nobody will ever be able to play this character as well as Snipes. Tom Cruise makes it an all-you-can-slice buffet at number 12. The ninjas against the samurai was the highlight of the movie for me, and I loved watching everyone fight with their hearts on their sleeves, including Nathan. I love that victorious battle cry at the end too, although I don't think it's just a celebration. I believe it's also a call for like a status report on who's alive, who's still fighting and whatnot. Either way, the action was insane, and I really want to see more movies that embrace this kind of fighting over gunfights and CGI battles. Everyone gets in on the fun as the Fellowship of the Ring finds a place just outside the top 10. The opponents may be shifting, but it's still good enough to warrant its position on the list. I mean, it is from the Lord of the Rings, so you can bet your bottom dollar that I'll do whatever I can to place it, and I'm not ashamed of my bias, okay? Plus, this has got to be Aragorn's best scene in the entire trilogy. After all, a lone warrior slowly walking up to a horde of Uruk-hai is easily one of the most badass moments in movie history. Everything about this battle was epic and memorable, so including it was a no-brainer. I know we're in top 10 territory, but the bride doesn't look at numbers. If she did, she'd have never dreamed of taking on the crazy 88, but guess what? She did, and she won. Her rage is the best part of this sequence, as she doesn't let the odds get to her. Yeah, I know this would never work out the same way in the real world, but we're trying to enjoy a Tarantino film here, and that guy doesn't even follow history. Just like at Inglourious Bastards and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for reference. Anyway, Uma Thurman totally slays and establishes herself as a proper action star thanks to this sequence. How about a little unorthodox father and son bonding for number 9? Luke Skywalker totally loses this fight, but at least he doesn't get killed. Compared to the lightsaber duel in the original Star Wars, this one hits way harder emotionally and feels way more intense for very obvious reasons.
You have learned much, young one.
You'll find I'm full of surprises.
Look, it's basically a sword fight, but with sci-fi laser swords instead of the regular kind, so look, it definitely counts. The Empire Strikes Back is pretty much flawless and has so much more going on than just cool battles, but Luke vs. Darth Vader is easily one of the best showdowns in the whole saga. It's iconic, dramatic, and set the standard for lightsaber duels after that. I've used a particular scene from The Princess Bride multiple times before, but for this video, bro doesn't need to repeat his name. Probably the second most iconic sword fight in The Princess Bride happens early on when the mysterious masked dude walks off with Inigo Montoya on the cliffs of insanity.
You're using Bonetti's defense against me, huh?
I thought it fitting, considering the rocky terrain.
Naturally, you must expect me to attack with Capoferro.
Naturally, but I find that Tybalt cancels out Capoferro. Don't you?
This scene is such a vibe, if I'm being honest. It's exciting, tense, and hilarious all at the same time. Even if the fight moves weren't that cool, it'd still stand out just because of how much it builds the story and shows off these awesome characters. The reason I haven't included the main scene is because it's too one-sided by the end of it, and this one's a little bit more balanced out.
Kill me quickly.
In a video like this, life should be all about dueling. In Ridley Scott's first ever feature film, The Duelists, you've got two dudes whose egos are literally fighting it out all across Napoleonic Europe. During their second duel, Gabriel lands a tiny stab which is super shallow and definitely not fatal, but Armand still drops like a sack of potatoes and can't keep going. He's like, bro, we've both bled now. Maybe chill and call it even? Anyway, what's awesome about this scene is how real it feels. Unlike most movies where the hero shrugs off being stabbed like it's nothing, The Duelist shows how even a little cut can mess you up and put your body in full panic mode. It's a reminder that duels weren't some epic drawn-out battles. They were fast, brutal, and one small injury could end it all. Before the days of Taken, Liam Neeson was quite the swordsman. In Rob Roy, he and Tim Roth go head-to-head in one of the coolest sword fights ever choreographed by Bob Anderson. What makes this duel stand out is how it shows two totally different fighting styles clashing. You've got Cunningham with his fast, precise rapier, and then you've got Roy swinging this massive, heavy claymore. The fight isn't just about swords, it's about their whole personalities clashing. Cunningham's slick moves wear Roy down, keeping him at bay so he can't land a proper hit. But even though Roy's slow, he's stubborn as heck. All he needs is one shot, so he actually lets himself get stabbed just to smash Cunningham with a brutal finishing blow. Yeah, there are no cheesy lines, this is just raw, gritty, 18th century violence done right. I justified lightsabers, so let me present them one more time as Darth Maul makes light work of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn. Remember, both these dudes are supposed to be expert fighters, but Darth Maul takes them on with ease. This sequence alone was worth the price of the ticket, and it was a nice move to keep pretty much no dialogue throughout the encounter. It's one of the few times we see Liam Neeson losing, so I would have loved to see more of Maul, but I guess the best we got was his weird demon cousin in Insidious. At number 4, we have the epic finale to an epic film. When I told you the tigerish duel wasn't even the best scene in the movie, I was totally referring to how this one was the best, and I'm sure that you'll agree. The final combat sequence was rousing, intense, cathartic, and ultimately bittersweet, being a perfect ending to an epic that ranks amongst Ridley Scott's very best films. Considering how everybody hated Commodus with a heated passion by this point, his death brought about cheers, but it was Maximus's resilience that gave him the glory he very much deserved. It's a sad ending as Maximus doesn't survive, but that's another reason why Gladiator is such an iconic classic. Here's a duel for the ages, that too from a foreign film. What's so dope about watching A La Triste is seeing this super Spanish rapier and dagger battle in all of its glory. The swords and daggers are literally clashing and locking up, slicing clean through leather and cloth like it's nothing. Everyone A La Triste faces is just as savage, jealous, ambitious, and out for blood. Even though he's the main character, he still takes a ton of hits, so it never feels easy or fake or anything like that. The way the movie shows these fights and films them is honestly next level. Major Hollywood studios should take note on how to mix real combat with storytelling, because A La Triste nails both. It's raw, intense, and actually shows how people fought back then without turning it into some over-the-top action sequence. The ladies show us how it's done by taking up second place on today's list. Yes, it's that scene from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which simply can't be ignored. It's such a simple setup for an action scene once you realize it's just two people throwing down a big open space. The cool twist is having all these random weapons scattered everywhere, so it's way more than just a basic sword fight. There are still plenty of blades flying around though, so sword fans won't be disappointed. The editing is on point, the stunts are insane, and both Michelle Yeoh and Zhang Zi bring all the intensity. The slow-mo is used just right, and they even sneak in some funny moments as well. Overall, it's well balanced and honestly, the perfect example of how to nail an epic sword fight. At number 1, Achilles takes all the glory. Remember when I made that reference in the King's entry? Well, that wasn't just a nod to this scene, but also a hint that you were gonna see this later. The battle between Achilles and Hector is obviously legendary, as it's been over 20 years since the film's release, and I'm yet to see another sword fight that made such a powerful impact. Man. This fight was so riveting, and I still feel a sense of thrill whenever I come across it. I love how Achilles' signature jump strike effectively portrays his whole demeanor too, which is a mixture of strength and elegance. Hector put up a heck of a fight, but at the end of the day, Brad Pitt made his mark. Hope you like this video. Please subscribe to the TV Region, and here's another video that I know you'll enjoy.